biggest drama in human life is that people constantly believe that they can find happiness in the objects that surround them, into the events that are happening around them. So they think, if I go mountain climbing, I will be happy. If I go listen to music, I will be happy. If I fall in love with this person, I will be happy. And they believe that these outside phenomena, let's call it phenomena, that will eventually lead to that happiness. And the error, and that's what I call the biggest human error, the error is to believe it's coming from there, when in fact those phenomena are just triggers that open something within ourselves, because the happiness is very much felt within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Anything outside of ourselves hardly ever triggers it can trigger the happiness within ourselves, but it is not coming from outside. It's just like a trigger, and then suddenly happiness can shine.
Mm-hmm. But how would we then, I mean, still there would be this trigger, and maybe even if you know that eventually happiness comes from inside, but still sometimes it gets unblocked, like you say, through outside events.
Yeah.
So you feel it would be still good not to focus on the outside events, or not to look for, but rather to sit more often quiet, or being more accepting for the situation you're already in, and not look for a change. Or how would you relate it to everyday life?
This is now where we come closer to the other topic, meditation. Because a meditation is in a way some movement that brings our attention back within,
mm-hmm.
without necessarily having to have a trigger outside. And when that happens, then you can sit like the Buddha, nothing is going on, yet you feel the joy shining within, without the necessity of having external triggers, like buying a new car, falling in love with a person, or go to a concert. You can just sit on your cushion and feel the happiness shining from within.
Mm-hmm. But where do you feel like the real problem starts? For example, this sounds also a bit like you would become quite lazy. You're not going out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not meeting friends, or you're not going for a walk in nature. So is it not also there's kind of a positive side that we look for new experience, to grow and learn and connect?
Yeah.
How do you relate that balance between being not kind of dependent maybe, or like having this negative feeling of longing, craving, and dissatisfaction, but also not to be lazy and become a couch potato?
Yeah. Or having to move to the Himalayas and sit in a cave all your life, which is also the extreme that would not be all that satisfactory. Yes, there should be a balance, and it is okay to find happiness without ourselves, that is outside of ourselves. It is okay to go dancing It is okay to listen to music. It is okay to sing in a choir. It is okay to do all those wonderful things, since they do seem to trigger this happiness within. The only problem starts when we believe it has to come from there, and we depend from there. And if we cannot buy this car, then we must be miserable. And if we cannot go to the dance because we have to work, then we will be miserable. It is when this mechanism comes into play that we then become more and more in need of those outside activities. And that is the suffering that most people, they experience, because they feel they somehow always miss something. Now, if you do these things just for the matter of celebration, you just go dancing for celebration, but maybe the dancing will be cancelled because the dancing area has an electricity failure, or if you look for love within a person and that person happens to be not interested, that will still hurt you a little bit, but you will not make such a big fuss about it, because you know she or the disco or the concert is not really what happens, this happiness. And that kind of then turns your life around, whereby you stop looking for happiness in the things and focus more within. And that is a big relief.
So in the end, like the Buddha said, that all or most of the suffering comes also from desiring and longing for things and objects outside, relationships, and so on. So would you practically suggest to kind of undo this mental habit of craving, of looking outside? What is the practical exercises you suggest for going within?
You can start with doing more of a self-investigation and look very carefully at what is it exactly that does trigger this happiness. And when you dig deep in this self-investigation, you may find that happiness usually occurs in our daily life when separation breaks down and oneness, which you call peace, can then arise. And I will give a few examples. I'm walking in nature. I'm surrounded visually by beautiful landscapes. And suddenly it can happen that me and nature merges, collapses. This is what I call doing self-investigation, is to see that when this merging takes place, when this separation between, let's call it ego and outside world, when they merge, that is a moment that usually triggers this happiness. This is one example. I can give another example. You go to concert. This is about hearing. And suddenly the music is so overwhelmingly beautiful that you no longer are a man or a woman sitting in a chair listening to musicians playing music there. Suddenly this distance collapses, the duality collapses, and this oneness is triggering happiness. And it is like that for the five senses. You can go to taste. Suddenly you go to a nicely prepared meal and you are really tasting, and you get completely lost in this wonderful tastes that this meal causes in you. And because of this collapse of me and food into a oneness experience, you can experience bliss. And the same with the smell. You can suddenly smell some. Now we are in the spring, we have these beautiful flowering trees, and suddenly these smells are completely taking you away. This is a nice expression in English. They take you away, meaning suddenly there is oneness and there's just smelling. There's no more me and a smell, but oneness. So these are the kind of sensual ways that beauty can trigger happiness.
So this would be like examples of beauty and love, but what we, I think, all usually experience, that we don't fall in love with everyone or everything. We love some objects, animals, or people. We feel kind of a love and like a unity with them, or closeness. But others, it's more challenging to have that experience. And also with beauty, we may find nature very beautiful, and we may have a preference, some kind of sceneries or certain kind of trees and plants, or certain kind of artworks, but we may not like other artworks. May not be available for abstract art. So I think then there could be two ways, either to expand, so to kind of try to understand and to like more, and to be open ourselves for more relationship and find more things beautiful by like looking more closely like an artist maybe, or to kind of turn, like maybe you suggested before, to completely turn away from the objects and say, okay, it's anyway not the object, it's more my state of mind or my connection with myself that is actually where I see the beauty, the love, and even the truth, like the Platonian three.
There are definitely circumstances that are not conducive, and it's the same with everyone has different tastes. Someone may like chocolate, others may like some spicy dishes. Everyone is different. The trick when you do this self-investigation on when these happiness moments arise is then to realize what we said before. It's not the thing. The happiness doesn't lie in the thing. The happiness is within. And even if circumstances are not conducive to happiness, when you then know that the happiness is really within, it doesn't really matter so much, because you can always go back to within. And this is then the meditation that we practice in many different traditions, is to turn away from the outside and finding the peace within, without the need of having met this person or going to that concert. And even rainy days when it's very grey can still then be beautiful when you just focus more within rather than without. There are two more causes of happiness that I quickly want to touch on. First of all is the understanding, because we also have thoughts. We haven't thought about thoughts. But in thinking, there are also certain circumstances where happiness can arise. And I often take the example of a scientist trying to solve a mathematical problem, or someone who is trying to solve a word cross puzzle. And it looks like something that is not it doesn't trigger very happiness, but in fact, when the moment comes that this scientist understands the problem, suddenly it comes to him. Or that you find this word in the crossword puzzle, and suddenly it comes to you. Those are also moments where you, as a thinker, and the problem that you're trying to solve dissolve. And that also triggers happiness, which explains why quite a lot of people can be found in libraries, seemingly not doing much except reading, but it also, even though they're so peaceful and silent, it actually also triggers happiness within themselves when they have these moments of understanding what they read, understanding what they are trying to resolve. So on the thinking level, we also have these moments of unity. So then there is, of course, the last trigger of happiness which we have not yet discussed. And that is on the level of the feelings. We have spoken about the senses, about thoughts, but there's also the feeling level. And of course, that has mostly to do when people fall in love. And it's actually a beautiful expression in English. Two people fall in love. So they fall away, oneness remains, they merge into oneness, and happiness can shine because there's no more me and you. And that is the last category, I would say, of when happiness is very prominent.
So, and again, then it would be more like this dropping away of our ego personality, this kind of separate self in the thinking, and that falls away, that falls into the love that is actually always present below. And if we just allow ourselves to that to happen, we have to open the heart.
And this is not only with relation to erotic relationship. We're talking about falling in love can just be in friendship also, in other circumstances. So falling in love with life can also be the case. In fact, what we describe with nature is actually falling in love with nature. Falling in love with the concert is when you also drop away in the concert. It's all love. So it's not only when two people meet. It happens at every level.
It's certainly connected. Like we often fall in love with also beautiful people and beautiful animals. Maybe we are more willing to open ourselves. So what we sense is beautiful and what we love is so often connected. So ultimately also maybe if we perceive the world as light, as kind of beautiful emanation, vibration, and feel the connection to everything around us, then we are more in this spiritual unity. And
everything shines in those moments. When you fell in love with a person or with a circumstance, suddenly the whole world becomes like a fine place. When you are not, and you're kind of in your own prison and you're separate, then the world very often shines less. Let's put it that way. Well, there was a wonderful conversation. I would like to thank you.
Thank you.
And for the viewer also, I wish you to find this happiness within yourself. And don't forget, it's here. It's not over there. Thank you.